In 2026, something is going to happen on American soil that will be watched by more human beings simultaneously than any event in the entire history of planet Earth. Not the Super Bowl, not the Olympics, not anything you've ever seen before. And the most shocking part? Most Americans don't even know it's coming. We're talking about an event so massive that entire countries shut down for it. Schools close, businesses close. Governments have literally rescheduled national elections to avoid overlapping with it. Wars have been paused because of it. And in 2026, for the very first time, it's happening right here, on American soil, in American stadiums, in American cities. This is the FIFA World Cup 2026. And by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why this is the single most important sporting event in American history. Why it's bigger than anything the Super Bowl has ever been. Why 2026 specifically is different from every World Cup that came before it. And why, even if you have never watched a single second of football in your entire life, you are going to care deeply about what happens next summer. Stay with me, because this gets genuinely insane. Let's start with the number that changes everything. The Super Bowl is America's most watched sporting event. Every year, around 115 million Americans tune in. That is a massive number. That is an incredible achievement. The Super Bowl is one of the most impressive television events ever created. But here's the thing. The FIFA World Cup final in 2022 was watched by 1.5 billion people. Billion, with a B, in a single afternoon.
That is not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. Independent research organizations confirmed that number. 1.5 billion human beings watched the same football match on the same day at the same time. To put that into perspective for you, that is more than the entire population of China watching one sporting event. That is roughly 1 in every 5 living human beings on this planet simultaneously watching the same game. The Super Bowl gets 115 million. The World Cup final gets 1.5 billion. That gap is so large, it almost doesn't make sense. And yet most Americans have no idea it exists. Because the World Cup has always happened somewhere else, always on a different continent, always at weird hours, always feeling like something that belongs to the rest of the world, but not to us. Until 2026. Now, before we go any further, let me quickly explain what the World Cup actually is. Because if you're new to football, this is the foundation of everything. Every single 4 years, countries from all around the world compete to be crowned the best national football team on the planet. Not club teams, not city franchises, entire countries. Brazil sends their best players, Germany sends their best players, Argentina sends their best players, and the United States sends their best players. They all compete in one massive tournament. 1 month, dozens of games, one champion. Think of it like this. Imagine if the NBA wasn't the Chicago Bulls versus the Miami Heat. Imagine if instead it was actual countries competing. Team USA versus Team France versus Team Nigeria versus Team Argentina. And imagine the whole world watched that tournament like it was the most important thing happening on Earth. That is essentially what the World Cup is. Except instead of basketball, it's football. And instead of millions of fans, it draws billions. Now here is where 2026 becomes something truly historic. This isn't just any World Cup coming to America. This is the first ever expanded World Cup in history. For the first time ever, 48 countries are competing instead of the usual 32. That means more nations, more storylines, more upsets, more drama, and critically, more chances for the United States to make a deep run in front of a home crowd and give this entire country something to rally around. But that's still not the biggest part. The 2026 World Cup is being co-hosted by 3 countries simultaneously: the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Also a first in World Cup history.
And the games are being spread across 16 cities across North America. In the United States specifically, matches will be played in New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Miami, Boston, Seattle, San Francisco, Kansas City, Philadelphia, and Atlanta. Let that sink in for a second. World Cup football is not happening on a screen at 3 a.m. while the rest of America sleeps. It's happening in your city, in stadiums you've been to, potentially within driving distance of your house. The biggest sporting event on the planet is coming to your neighborhood. And here's what that means in practice. Hundreds of thousands of international football fans are going to pour into American cities for an entire month. And I need you to understand something about international football fans that you might not fully appreciate yet. These are not regular sports fans. These are people who have been waiting for years for this moment. People who booked flights and hotels the day qualifying finished. People who travel in enormous groups, wearing full national team gear, singing songs from the moment they land to the moment they fly home. People who stand in stadiums and sing continuously for 90 straight minutes without stopping for breath. American sports fans are passionate, absolutely. But the atmosphere that international football fans create is something that most Americans have genuinely never experienced in person. It is a wall of sound and color and emotion that hits you physically when you walk into a stadium. And in 2026, that is coming to Dallas, to Miami, to New York, to Los Angeles. American sports culture is about to be hit by a wave unlike anything it has ever felt before. Now let's talk about the thing that makes this whole moment feel like it was building for years. Football in America has been growing quietly and consistently for a long time. But in the last 5 years specifically, something accelerated. Major League Soccer, which is basically the American Professional Football League, has been expanding rapidly. New teams keep launching. Attendance keeps climbing. Younger American sports fans are choosing football at a rate that has genuinely surprised analysts and sports executives. And then in 2023, something happened that sent a shockwave through American sports.
Lionel Messi signed with Inter Miami. Now, if you don't know who Lionel Messi is, here's a quick explanation. Messi is widely and almost universally considered the greatest football player who has ever lived. He won the World Cup with Argentina in 2022. He has won more individual player awards than anyone in the history of the sport. He played for decades at FC Barcelona in Spain, then Paris Saint-Germain in France. He is to football what Michael Jordan is to basketball, what Muhammad Ali is to boxing, what Tom Brady is to American football. And he chose Miami, not London, not Paris, not Madrid, not any of the richest and most powerful football clubs in Europe that offered him contracts. He chose a team in Florida, a team that plays in the same city that will host World Cup matches in 2026. That was not a coincidence. The greatest player on earth looked at what is coming in 2026 and he chose to be part of it. He chose to be in America for this moment. And when Lionel Messi makes a decision like that, it tells you something important about where the center of gravity in global football is shifting. Now, let's talk about the American national team, because this part of the story is one that even a lot of football fans haven't fully caught up with yet. The United States men's national team, the USMNT, has historically been a team that qualified for World Cups, competed respectably, and went home without making a huge noise. They've had good moments, a famous upset over England in 1950, a run to the quarterfinals in 2002, some respectable performances. But nobody ever looked at the USMNT and thought they were serious contenders for the title. That is genuinely starting to change.
The current American squad has a core group of young players who compete week in and week out at the highest level of club football in Europe. Christian Pulisic plays for AC Milan in Serie A, which is one of the most competitive leagues in the world. Weston McKennie has played in Italy, Tyler Adams has played in the English Premier League, Gio Reyna, Ricardo Pepi, Folarin Balogun. These are not Americans playing American football at an American level. These are Americans competing against the best players in the world every single week. And in 2026, they come home. Think about what home advantage does to any athlete.
Think about what it means to perform in front of your own fans, in your own country, knowing that the whole nation is watching. Now put that on the biggest stage in sports history. The USMNT has never had a moment like this before, and they have never had a squad as talented as this one heading into that moment. That combination, home crowd, talented squad, biggest tournament in history, is exactly the kind of setup that sporting fairy tales are made of. Here's one more thing that most people don't talk about when they discuss the 2026 World Cup. Every single country that has ever hosted the FIFA World Cup has experienced the same thing afterward. Economists and sports researchers have actually studied this pattern extensively. Hosting the World Cup doesn't just bring tourists and revenue for a month. It plants football deep into the culture of the host nation for decades. It creates a generation of young fans who grow up with the memory of the World Cup happening in their city. It converts casual observers into lifelong supporters.
It happened in the United States before, actually. America hosted the World Cup back in 1994. And in the years following that tournament, Major League Soccer was created for the very first time. The foundation of American professional football was built directly on the momentum of that tournament. What do you think happens when America hosts it again, in 2026, with a bigger tournament, with more cities involved, with the greatest player on earth playing in Miami, with a national team that is genuinely capable of making noise? The growth that comes after 2026 is going to be unlike anything American sports has seen from a new sport entering the mainstream. So let's bring this all together. The most watched event in human history, 1.5 billion people, is coming to American cities in the summer of 2026. It's the first ever 48-team World Cup, making it bigger and more dramatic than any previous tournament. It's being co-hosted across the United States, Canada, and Mexico simultaneously. International football fans in the millions are going to flood into American cities and create an atmosphere unlike anything most Americans have ever experienced. The greatest player who ever lived chose Miami as his home specifically ahead of this moment. And the American national team is heading into this tournament with their most talented generation of players ever, playing in front of a home crowd on the biggest stage in sports history. This is not just another sporting event. This is a cultural earthquake. This is the moment that the one sport the entire rest of the world has been obsessed with for over 100 years finally lands in America with full force. And whether you have watched football your whole life or you were discovering it for the very first time through this video right now, you are living through the build-up to something genuinely historic. The world is coming to America in 2026, and it is going to be unlike anything this country has ever seen in sports. If you want to actually understand what you're watching when it arrives, the rules, the positions, the teams, the tactics, everything, this channel is going to break it all down in the simplest way possible. No football knowledge required, no complicated jargon. Just everything you need to go from complete beginner to someone who actually understands the sport before the biggest sporting event in history kicks off in your own backyard. Subscribe, because we are just getting started, and 2026 is closer than you think.